Most gardeners don't have a compost problem. They have a compost misuse problem, and it's quietly killing their yields. Plants that should be thriving stall out, leaves turn pale, growth slows to a crawl, and fruiting becomes inconsistent. The assumption is always the same: not enough compost, so more gets added. But that's exactly where things spiral further. When that distinction is ignored, soil turns heavy, waterlogged, and biologically inconsistent, especially in raised beds and small backyard plots where balance matters even more. There's also a bigger picture that often gets overlooked. Growing food isn't just about yield, it's about responsibility. Supporting ecosystems, improving soil, and making better use of organic waste all connect to a broader mindset of care. That same mindset extends beyond the garden. Now, one of the biggest reasons compost fails is because it isn't fully finished. Even when it looks ready, dark color and earthy smell don't guarantee stability. Immature compost continues breaking down in the soil, which pulls nitrogen away from plants during the process. That's why plants often yellow after compost application. It's not a deficiency in the soil, it's competition happening underground. Roots need oxygen just as much as nutrients. When soil becomes overly rich in organic matter, it compacts over time, holds too much moisture, and creates anaerobic zones where beneficial microbes struggle to survive. There's also the issue of imbalance. Compost varies wildly depending on what went into it. Kitchen scraps, grass clippings, manure, and leaves all break down differently and leave behind different nutrient profiles. A compost heavy in greens might carry too much nitrogen early on, while one dominated by woody material can tie up nitrogen for months. Without understanding that, gardeners apply compost blindly and then wonder why growth becomes inconsistent across different beds or seasons. Timing is another factor that quietly affects results. Compost added right before planting often hasn't integrated into the soil system yet. Microbial activity needs time to stabilize and interact with existing soil biology. The best results usually come from applying compost at least 2 to 3 weeks before planting, allowing that transition period to happen. In colder climates or during cooler months, that window should be even longer because decomposition slows down significantly. Raised beds amplify all of these issues because they operate as controlled environments. Unlike in-ground soil, there's no deep earth buffer to absorb mistakes. Every input matters more. A bed that's 70% compost might seem rich, but it's actually unstable over time. The ideal balance leans closer to 30 to 40% compost mixed with quality topsoil and aeration materials like coarse sand or perlite. Hydroponic growers run into a different version of the same misunderstanding. Compost doesn't belong directly in hydroponic systems, but compost teas are often used. The problem is that poorly brewed compost tea introduces harmful bacteria or inconsistent nutrient levels. When done correctly, compost tea should be aerated for 24 to 36 hours with a stable microbial food source, maintaining dissolved oxygen throughout the process. Anything longer or without proper aeration risks turning beneficial microbes into harmful ones. Water management also shifts when compost is used incorrectly. Compost-rich soils hold more water, which sounds beneficial but often leads to overwatering. Roots sitting in constantly moist conditions become weak and prone to disease. That's why compost-heavy beds often show signs of root rot or fungal issues, even when watering schedules seem reasonable. Adjusting watering frequency based on soil composition is essential, not optional. Another overlooked factor is pH drift. Compost can either raise or lower soil pH depending on its source. Continuous application without testing gradually shifts soil conditions out of the optimal range for nutrient uptake. That's when plants start showing deficiencies, even though nutrients are technically present. Regular soil testing, even once or twice a year, prevents this slow decline and keeps everything within a workable range. There's also a difference between compost as a soil builder and compost as a mulch. When used as a top dressing, a thin half-inch layer works well to protect soil, regulate temperature, and slowly feed microbial life. But when buried too deeply or compacted into the soil, it loses that benefit and becomes part of the structural problem instead of the solution. The quality of compost matters just as much as the quantity. Homemade compost can be excellent, but only if the inputs are balanced and the process is controlled. Random piles that never heat properly often carry weed seeds, pathogens, and incomplete organic matter. That's where something like Job's Organics Compost Starter proves useful again. It helps ensure consistent breakdown, especially in smaller backyard setups, where maintaining ideal composting conditions is harder. In small gardens, space limitations make efficiency critical. Every square foot has to produce. That means compost needs to enhance soil, not dominate it. Mixing compost thoroughly rather than layering it heavily prevents stratification, where roots struggle to move between dense organic layers and mineral soil beneath. Seasonal adjustments also play a role. During heavy rain periods, compost-rich soils can become saturated quickly, requiring better drainage planning. In dry seasons, those same soils retain moisture longer, which can reduce watering needs if managed correctly. Understanding how compost changes soil behavior across seasons is what separates average results from consistently strong harvests. Even experienced growers fall into the trap of thinking compost solves everything. It doesn't fix poor soil structure on its own, and it doesn't replace balanced fertilization when crops demand it. High-yield crops like tomatoes, peppers, and cucumbers still require additional nutrients beyond what compost can provide. Compost supports the system, but targeted feeding completes it. Ultimately, compost is one of the most powerful tools in gardening, but only when used with precision. Treating it like a cure-all leads to slow, frustrating results. Treating it like a biological support system unlocks consistent growth, healthier plants, and better yields across every type of setup, from backyard beds to controlled hydroponic environments. For those serious about improving results, the difference comes down to understanding how compost actually behaves in soil, not just following general advice. And tools that help stabilize and improve compost quality, like Job's Organics Compost Starter, quietly make that process more reliable from the start. Better compost use leads to better soil, and better soil leads to better food. That's the entire chain. Subscribe for more practical growing strategies that actually work, and share this with anyone struggling to get results from their garden, because once compost is used correctly, everything else starts to fall into place. And having the right support tools from the beginning makes that transition faster and far more consistent.